Do you ever wonder how your other children are really coping after your child died? As a grieving mom, it's natural to wonder if you're supporting them in the right way. Today is part two of our sibling loss series. And if you haven't listened to part one, I encourage you to go back and listen to that just so you get two different perspectives, a mother's and a sibling's. Today, I'm joined by Caitlin DeYoung, a bereaved sister who shares her personal journey and what it was like navigating grief as a surviving child. Caitlin opens up about the moments that helped and what moms can truly do to support their children through this unimaginable loss. Thank you so much for being here, Caitlin.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. Glad to be here.
Tell us about your brother, Dylan.
Oh man, I love and hate this question because I love talking about him, but at the same time, I feel like I'm always going, oh, and this, and this, and this. So, to summarize as best I can, from the moment Dylan was born into this earth, I was been his oldest sibling. I'm the oldest of the three of us. So there's myself, my middle brother Ryan, and then Dylan came along 6 years after I did, 3 years after Ryan. So it was a brief period of life I knew without Dylan. It's almost like those first 6 years don't matter. Everything about him made every day better in so many ways. He was rambunctious and wild as a child. He demanded attention in the best ways, in the most healthy ways. Just being the youngest, being the cutest, he knew he was cute. His entire life, he knew he was cute, and he got away with so much because of that. As Dylan got older, he got bigger and bigger and bigger, and suddenly those 6 years weren't so apparent anymore between the two of us. He was a huge kid, but he loved just as hard. Every story I've heard about Dylan while he was with us, after he was gone, was just people talking about how loved he made them feel. And I don't know if he knew it, but it's almost like his mission was to make sure everyone felt included because that was something Dylan never really struggled with. But he could tell when people were hurting and he knew how to treat people with that. So while he was here, he was such a beam of light. He was so inviting, kind, funny. He was funny, inappropriate at times, but again, he was cute. So it worked. I miss him every day. His presence is so absent, but at the same time, we feel it in different ways now. And I'm very grateful for that. But he was just so special. I know everyone says that because I believe everyone, it truly is special. But he, I feel him gone from this earth every day because of just how special he was. And I feel like in parts, obviously that's hard, but it's also such a gift to know that it's hard because it mattered and he matters. So
So well said. So well
thank
said.
you. Thank you.
So, what did grief feel like for you? And do you think it was different from your parents?
That I think of that question so often. I've talked with friends, how are you doing?
Mm.
When anniversaries, birthday come up, how's it going? I still don't know. I really don't. Like in the beginning, it's all the things that you would maybe anticipate, but also different because Dylan was 18 when he passed. And 18-year-olds shouldn't die. Kids shouldn't die. Your siblings shouldn't die before their life has even started. So you grieve the person, but then you also grieve the days that follow, not even just the life that's gone, but these days. Like I've come to a conclusion in grief that again, these things hurt because they matter. But every event in my life that's going to be monumental or happy or really exciting, it's going to have an undertone of this should be different. And it's not. And so I think that's been the toughest thing in terms of navigating this is, and they sneak up on you these days that hurt sometimes the hardest. There are things you don't see coming. You're trying a new restaurant and it's just that moment of, oh my God, he would have loved this. I would have loved to have been talking to him about this. And so it's been, again, the obvious, it hurts, it's hard, it's debilitating some days, but it's just sometimes the thing that you sit with most is knowing that every day is a little bit different and capacity changes too. Like oh geez, over 5 years into Dylan being gone. And my answer on what grief looks like for me is changes daily. It really does. Like the first, I remember, oh man, I remember the first couple of months, obviously, your brain is consumed by this ball of grief and there's no room for anything else. And what was one of the trickiest things is life, whether we like it or not, it goes on. And that grief, it doesn't shrink, but that capacity, it's a very common phrase in grief. I find that, the grief itself never gets smaller. It's our capacity that changes with it. So I remember having a bad day that wasn't related to Dylan at all, however long after he died. And I had this moment of guilt of, oh my God, this isn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. But in hindsight, it's almost like a gift that no, these days do continue to happen. And it sounds so silly to be sitting here, well, I'm glad I had a bad day. I'm glad that life allows me to, and that I'm not stuck in a very hard thing. And to be able to move along with it and it follow me like a puppy, that's the price we pay.
Don't you find that grief has also given you perspective? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Oh man, no,
what
that's
came to me when you were saying
very
about
much it.
having a bad day, like your house could be on fire. And honestly, I don't know, it's never happened to me, but I don't think that would ever compare to losing someone that you love so close like that.
No, and it's very much that. And it's so interesting because it definitely does change your perspective. And there's this higher part of you that your highest self knows that no, this is fine. This is truly fine. But I think our day-to-day life and our hyperfixation on the present moment, and I think it's so good to be present in the moment and to be living those moments, but sometimes you really just have to pull yourself back and say no. Like we have done much harder. We have done the impossible. We're doing the impossible. That's how it feels a lot of the time. So yeah, those perspective of, you know what, I think I had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
It you really do build a shield in a sense, but I think it is also a gift that real life does still seep in and that we have the capacity for those experiences. Like, oh, I got dumped or this really dumb thing happened at work. It kind of just brushes right off that armor. It's a bad day that you can talk about your friends, but this isn't going to have you out. This isn't going to change how you live every single day. And again, I feel like it's a blessing in some ways, knowing that probably done the hardest thing you ever will, but
So
got
true.
to stay ready for what happens in the meantime. So,
Got to keep living.
absolutely.
Ironically, I have a son named Ryan, and you have a brother named Ryan. I remember my Ryan. I don't know at what point I realized it, but I'm going to say maybe the summer after we lost Katie. So let's say about 9 months out. That I don't think he was truly seen as a griever. Like
Mm,
he loves to, get into the hood of his car and turn wrenches and all that. So the neighbors would walk by while he was out tinkering on his car and they'd stop. They'd say, "Hey Ryan, how are your mom and dad doing?" And almost never did they say, "Hey buddy, how are you doing?" Did you
yeah,
ever feel unseen in your grief?
that's it. By my own parents, no. I, in getting ready for our conversation today, I've done some reflecting on what the last 5 years have looked like. And this is not an experience I want anyone to ever experience, but it happened. And all we can do is deal with it. I will say every time from the rooftops with my whole chest that I had the best team alongside me for this. Like my mom, my dad, Ryan, my brother, we all let ourselves do what we needed to, but we knew that there was a home base. And so I definitely think that when there is a child loss, when you're talking to the sibling that's lost, this person, it can be hard. And I really understand why people do this, but to look at this person who's also experiencing something, oh geez, that's a hot subject. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to make them upset, which is very hard to do unless you do truly say the dumbest thing I've ever heard, which people do that. That's something that's a part of it. Um, so I find it easier kind of for that connection of, okay, what's a common ground, but not you. And I don't think it's coming from a place of someone trying to be malicious or leave you behind. I think it's just very hard to look at someone who's going through what you know to probably be the hardest thing they've ever dealt with. Okay, let's talk about it. And I want to let you know I'm there for you still, but I do want to keep some distance. And I don't fault people for that. It's interesting. Like, I had friends, unfortunately, who have also lost siblings. And when it came time to, comfort them and talk with them about this, I felt like I should have this playbook of, yep, I know this experience. We've had this, we've done this, and you don't. And so, even understanding their pain, you still really don't know what to say. So, in terms of feeling forgotten, no. But in terms of seeing people, probably with the best intentions, navigate an awkward heart or an awkward conversation, I hear that, I see that, but I also love that person all the same, even if I'm not the subject of it. And sometimes, quite frankly, for myself personally, I don't want to talk about me. I have said all the words I can say. Let's talk about someone else. Let's talk about it. So again, every day is different, but it's a very interesting thing to navigate because yeah, sometimes in the best way, it's just not about me and I don't want it to be about me. So forgotten, no, but again, people can trip over their words. So I get it.
Yeah, I always tried to reflect on the fact that, before I lost Katie, I was probably that big dum dum that stuck my size 8 foot in my mouth repeatedly,
And you just don't
because
know. And I read until you
you
know,
don't
you
know
just,
what you
and
don't
even
know.
when you know, you still
No.
really don't know because everyone experiences this so, so differently, which
Yeah.
is why, there comes a time to talk. There's a point to listen, and
Hmm.
there's a point to just be there for someone in whatever capacity where they're at, you're meeting them. And that's all we can do.
I think being the receiver of this and saying these words, I have found very helpful in my journey, and that's just to be flat out honest. I don't know what to say. I don't have the right words. And then right away, that curtain, that whatever, it just comes down, right? When you're that honest with people.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that was one of the big things I've kind of been reflecting on, getting ready for our conversation here, especially with parents looking at their own kids,
Mhm.
their surviving kids. We're all experiencing this horrible thing happening at the same time, and we're all experiencing it so differently. And I feel like I'm not a parent myself, but I have a very, very great mom who has raised me. I'm not going to say perfect because I think parenthood there is no perfect, but I would not change a thing. Before Dylan, after Dylan, during the loss, there's nothing I would change about her or my dad. But I think sometimes that honesty is so powerful and maybe one of the most healing tools that I found is sometimes to say, even to my brother, my surviving brother, Ryan, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And especially to look at my parents, I was 24 when Dylan passed. And when I was 24, that was the oldest I'd ever been. I'm grown. I'm 29 now. And I look back at 24 me and I'm like, oh, geez. We really were still figuring things out. I'm still very much figuring things out. But at 24, that was one of the very first times in my life, or maybe the most monumental time in my life, where I've truly looked at my parents, these adults have always been the adults in my life. And it was a moment of, oh my God, they don't know what they're doing either. None of us know. And I think that allowing yourself, again, I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to tell a parent what to do, but from a child's perspective, I think one of the most beautiful things you can allow yourself to do is be vulnerable. One of the things I've learned through this time is that there really isn't a life worth living without vulnerability, without that openness, and to let your children look at you and go, this is a human too. I'm doing my best and I'm here for you, but I'm a human too. And I think that allowing maybe that very fine veil to be removed in terms of, no, I haven't figured out, we haven't handled, I don't have it handled actually, but I'm here for you and we're going to navigate it together. And I think that allowing yourself to grow through that uncomfortable time, like really feel those growing pains, it'll get you to another side of this. I don't think there's a after of grief. I don't think there's a before and after per se. I think you're always living with it. You never really get over it, but I think it gets you where you need to be a hell of a lot quicker and smoother.
That is such wise words, Caitlin. Like really, very, very wise words. Something came to me when you were saying that, and I love the vulnerability piece in part one of the series. And what I always kind of had in the back of my mind with my own son is that I think modeling healthy grief, however that looks,
Mm-hmm.
like I never wanted my son to grow into be a man that was afraid to show his emotions or afraid to talk
Love
about
that.
emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that it was important for me and his dad to express our grief, to not hide our tears from him, to just show him that like this is part of it. And again,
Mm-hmm.
like you say, like I still don't know that I have this figured out, and I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
up on 10 years. But to be open and honest with with our kids like that, I think very, very wise words. Was there ever a time when you felt that you needed to pull back on your grief a little bit and be strong for your parents?
There were times for sure where I felt like I should, and I don't fault my parents for that at all. I think that's just very much of I've always been a people pleaser, recovering people pleaser. So sometimes it's like I can see everyone around me is hurting. I don't want to make anything harder for anyone else. But that is not the way to live this. That is, I think it's devastating enough for a parent to lose one child. But I think that not letting yourself feel things as their surviving child, you're eventually going to push that relationship away too. And now they've lost two kids. And so it was very much a dynamic. I felt that, there's a term in relationships, we're never able to both give 100%. Some days you're giving 60, you're giving 40. Some days I'm giving 90, you're giving 10. And I think that as a family aspect, maybe without sitting down and going, okay, this is what we're doing, we were all kind of on that same page of, I'm having a good week today. I can handle it. I can cook supper, for example. Or, you know what? That's not happening tonight. And we all kind of met each other where we were at in those early days of just allowing ourselves to pick up the weight where we can. And some days there was no strength to pick up anything. And that was okay. And I'm very grateful for that. And I definitely tried to support my parents where I could. Um, but again, there's that thing of, well, what do I say? What do I do? I don't know. There's nothing I can do to fix this. And again, I think just meeting them where they're at each day. And that was the thing with my parents. Like, I find them so similar in so many ways, but in so many ways, so different, just in terms of how they would navigate things. Like my dad, for example, he kept his days busy. We're golfing, we're running errands, we're doing this. What can I get from the store? Like, we're staying busy. My mom is not that way. She is completely content to be at home, bed rot, if you will. And that's okay too. But just in navigating that, there's no right or wrong. We were able to just ultimately get through it together. And again, I know that that's not the experience with everyone, and that's extremely upsetting. But again, I know how privileged I am to come from that support network, and I really couldn't have asked for anything differently with it.
Well, and knowing your parents, I would say that you are a very, very, very lucky girl.
I
And you're
agree.
right. Sadly, grief does rip families apart. I know a few months into our journey, the three of us were grieving so differently. I didn't think my marriage
Mm,
was going to last. I didn't think, I was actually afraid of losing my son, whatever that looked like.
yeah,
Um, and isn't it amazing that you can have humans that have lived under the same roof for 20 some years and all grieve so differently?
absolutely. Yeah, and my brother too, like comparing the two of us, like, and I think this is not a bad example of talking about how you kind of move along with grief. Like when Dylan had first passed, I would feel so guilty if I wasn't getting out to the cemetery weekly to sit with him, bring him a blue Gatorade. Like that was my thing for a while. That was his favorite drink. And I still do that on like birthdays and anniversaries. But if this wasn't a weekly thing, that means I'm forgetting him and he feels abandoned and all these things. And Ryan, I think I might be wrong in this, but I could probably count on one hand the amount of times he's gone out there. And that's not to say I'm doing it right, he's doing it wrong, or vice versa. It's just very much we look for different things in the things that are going to bring us comfort through this. To him, cemetery was not it. And I completely understand that. It's a freaky concept, even for someone who spent a lot of time out there. It is, and I get why people aren't into it. I completely get it. Um, I don't go as often anymore. I think that that's something I've allowed to myself to grow with. That okay, he's here with me in other ways. This physical presence, looking back, I think it was a lot of control I was trying to navigate with. And again, there's no shame in a weekly cemetery visit. It just if it's not serving you, you don't have to do it. And I think that again, grief can be different amongst people, but I think one of the things along this journey is realizing that it can look different in yourself too, and that you can change. And I don't want to say mature, but you learn what works and what you just can leave behind if it's not serving you. So
I think that's a huge part of grief is this is not going to be the right word, but it is transformative, and we transform,
oh,
our
absolutely.
grief changes as human beings. We're always changing. I'm not the same person I was even 5 years ago into Katie's grief, but
Mm-hmm.
we change, we evolve, our needs change. Like you say, something that was perhaps a necessity in the beginning is now maybe not so much, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is totally okay.
Absolutely.
What did your parents do that made you feel the most supported in your grief?
I've definitely touched on it a bit just with, again, letting us exist where we're at
Mhm.
in terms of that. Like I remember, oh, and this is the thing with Dylan too. He passed May 2020. So that was very fresh first few months of COVID. Everything is a little bit weird with terms of family visiting, the service itself, things like that. But family did come in because, I mean, how don't they?
Mm-hmm.
But there was never an obligation for us to, okay, you have to sit down and visit. You have to sit down and be raw and vulnerable. And when people are doing their best to comfort you, but it just isn't hitting. And that's again, not because they're doing anything wrong, but I just don't want to be here. We didn't have to be. There was no expectation on us. And I think that that's something that I can say I've learned through grief. If you want to drop something off, drop it off, but we really don't have to have the privilege to have expectations of those who are grieving, especially right early on like that. Again, in the best way possible, it's not about you. It's not about a visit right now. It's kind of about survival. So I remember Brian would poke his head up, say hi, maybe grab a plate of food off the counter because there was always so much food.
Right?
But there was just no obligation to do anything. Like I remember because you just do the weirdest things in fresh grief, or I did at least. Like I remember it was raining and I took my iPad outside and I watched a comedy special on Netflix laying in the wet grass. And it was just, okay, I'm not sure why this is happening, but let her be. And that was the thing. Within reason and within supervision of knowing where I was and that I was safe, they let me be. And I think that got me not out of it, obviously, but it gave me the room to grow without being tugged a million ways. And I'm very grateful for that.
Those, again, are very wise words. I know in the early days, Ryan just, for lack of a better word, didn't want to be here. He
Yeah.
did not want to see mom and dad in a heap.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't want to talk about it. So he would go around the corner to his friend's place. And thank God, I mean, his mom would text
Mm.
me, Ryan's over here, we're going to feed him,
Oh, that's
he can
awesome.
stay the
Yeah.
night, all that stuff. Supported him as best they could. Um, I don't know what it was like in your house, but immediately, I mean, just the way things happen with us, I quickly realized that people can walk out my front door and I may never see them again.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone that came, I mean, it could have been the
Mm-hmm.
mailman, everyone had to have a hug and everyone had to have an I love you like all the time, which is
Yeah.
great. And I mean, we do need to tell people that more often.
Yeah.
But about a weekend, I think Ryan said, Mom, I can do the I love yous, but I can't do all the hugs. I'm like, okay, okay,
That's my Ryan
sorry.
too. It
I'm sorry. And yet now he is more of a hugger, like
is he?
he'll
My
never
brother
come
has not
over
come
and
around
not hug
yet.
us. But at the time, I think I
Oh,
was smushing that poor kid, numerous times a day. And you're right. I think part of it is a weird sense of control, false control,
mhm.
obviously, but
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Um, this isn't something we planned to talk about, but I'm going to go there.
it's perfect.
Let's talk about your spiritual connection with your brother.
Right. So, and this has been something I'm trying to phrase it in a way that's not going to make me sound insane, but I we're there. It's fine. Um, I think that I have always been someone who's spiritual, and I think that that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. To me, what that means is that I know it's just not me and my friends on this planet spinning around. I like to think, I'm pretty sure I know that there's more to it than that. This journey doesn't end here. And sometimes that can bring a lot of peace. Sometimes that can bring a sense of overwhelm, not necessarily in a bad way, but it is a bit overwhelming to consider that there is just so much we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God. I think as humans, we're not meant to understand and know everything as it's presently happening. And I think that my spirituality has strengthened a lot since losing Dylan
Mm-hmm.
and just the ties I find to him in the silliest ways. Like this is such a dumb example, but I will lose my AirPods 3 times a week minimum. And there's just moments where I have to just stop what I'm doing. Okay, Dylan, like, come on, where are they? And then they appear. Just so dumb stuff like that. But then there are the bigger things like I whenever I've gone to like a medium or like a spiritual guide, things like that, I'll kind of sit down, we'll look at each other for a minute, and then they'll go, oh, okay, what are we working with here? There's something that we're kind of tapping in with. So very intuitive. And I think that allowing myself to understand or begin to understand fully that there is more that we're not seeing right now does allow me to tap into my intuition. Um, there was a recent situation where I was involved with somebody and I just knew in my gut something wasn't right, something wasn't right. And so I guess we could call it praying. We'll look up to the higher whoever's listening and hey, I need something here. And I was given a dream with the name of somebody who fully ended up being in a relationship with the person I was worried about. And those things don't just happen. And it's one of those moments where you can go, oh my God, I was right. I was right, but there's no way. Like, how would I know? I don't know. I don't know. So I think that the idea of like a spirit guide when you've lost someone as close to you as a sibling that they knew, like Dylan knew me his entire life. And I think that when you lose a connection like that and you're able to tap into your intuition or let your mind to wander what else is out there, I think there's answers out there. And I think that they will be telling you things, whether you like it or not, or when you're ready to hear it. Maybe it's a better way of putting it. Um, but I feel him daily. I think that he has given me a lot of, I don't want to say he makes me second guess, but I've learned that it's okay to. And it's okay to listen to yourself and go, if this isn't feeling right, I'm gonna make a call and I have yet to be wrong. Or it's not even me. I honestly do think it's him. I think that I am just kind of a pawn and he can see something I can't. And again, whether that's him or it's your own daughter or a friend that's passed, I think that there is someone truly looking after you if you'll listen to him every now and then.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We could talk about this for hours. One of my favorite.
Yeah.
So, how has Dylan's loss shaped you as a person?
It has, I don't know if it's as simple to look at going, this horrible thing that happened has made me a better person because I would like to think that there was always that potential within me. This terrible thing didn't have to happen, but it did. And I think that when we are confronted with something as big as a loss of a sibling or your own child, we have a choice to make. And we can either stop living that life that we know it, and to a point, you almost have to because it's going to never be the same. I think that's just a fair statement. It's hard to hear, it's hard to say. It's just not, there's no way it could be. And I think to not allow yourself that growth during such a pivotal moment for yourself, to make the choice to stay stuck where you are, because I'm not saying that you can't be sad. That is not what I'm saying. But I can't imagine living the rest of my life after losing someone so young and seeing them after all of this and going, I never moved on. I was miserable every day of my life because I lost you. I don't think they'd be stoked to hear that.
Mm-mm.
In fact, I think they'd be fairly disappointed. And that's not to say that every single day is going to be living, pedal to the metal, like, let's go, let's go. It's not that at all because real life is still here. But I think if you let yourself see people, meet them where they're at, I think one of the biggest things, and I know I've said it a million times during this so far, is realizing that sometimes it's just not all about you. You maybe talked with a coworker and they gave you a cold shoulder and, oh, that was so weird. We don't know what's going on. And I think that giving people the benefit of the doubt, because we really, again, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know if somebody's navigating the very worst time of their life and this is their first day back to work after 3 months off. And we just don't know. And so I think that we can look at or myself, I can look at the behavior of people that maybe I don't agree with. No, I don't agree with it, but understand that this is a very complicated time. This is all of our first time being alive. And I think that allowing people that grace, and some people, yes, will just be the way they are, and that's just not for me. And then we can move on. But I think that we as human beings have a lot more in common in terms of what we navigate behind the scenes. And I think if we just all let ourselves feel that and leave space for that, I think there would be a lot more understanding among everyone.
Agreed. I can't remember where I saw this, but it was early on in my grief journey. And it's just something that I've kind of tucked in my back pocket. And that when bad things happen, we can choose to be better or
Mm,
bitter.
mm-hmm.
And
Exactly
unfortunately,
that.
I've seen a lot of bitterness. And I just don't think that's my best way to honor my daughter's memory,
No,
you
I
know?
totally agree.
Yeah.
Which you do a wonderful job of, by the way.
Oh, you're so kind. So just to wrap things up here, I know we have some bereaved moms listening.
Mm-hmm.
What's your number one tip that you would give a bereaved mom about supporting their other children?
It's going to be okay,
Hmm.
but it's going to be different. And I think that that is just, I can talk for hours on how it's going to be different, but it's going to be okay, but it is going to be different. The way that your kids view their lives, the way that they view mortality, like this losing my brother made me realize that one day, like, I'm going to have to lose my parents too. And I think just letting yourself enjoy those moments where they come up, letting your kids enjoy those moments with you, letting your kids see you sad, let your kids see you have a good day. Don't fake it. But, those good days do happen. We can create new memories. And those new memories, again, I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't allow the room for those to come in. I think that every family will find their own groove in terms of honoring their lost sibling or child. And I think that that's how you talk about it together. I think there's a lot of pressure in terms of honoring those we've lost. And some people thrive in, creating these monumental things that are contributed to every year. Sometimes it's just simply, setting out a stocking for them, letting them know that this life did matter. It did happen. It's hard and it hurts because it matters, but life, unfortunately, and fortunately, very fortunately, it does go on, but it is going to be different. and let your kids see that with you.
And just to piggyback on that, something that came to my mind too was from the very beginning, I always told myself that my son Ryan deserves a good life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he was 15 when we lost Katie, and that was something that kind of, I don't know if it helped me or pushed me or what the right word is, but it just was kind of like a beacon for me that
Mm,
in order to give him the best life possible, I needed to be the best mom possible.
I love
That
that.
meant, like you say, showing him, it may not be happy, happy, joy, joy, but that there were moments where we could laugh and we could do things together as a family and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want him to see just bleakness all the time. And hopefully, maybe one day, Lisa will be Grandma Lisa. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want my son to and his wife to say, oh, God, we got to go over to mom's house today. Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
bad over there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's, we say this like it's an easy thing and none of it is easy, but just kind of things to think about, I would say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean if you're feeling lost and you're navigating the hardest thing you've ever had to, that you're writing down to do checklist. It's not that, but these
No.
moments, even if it's for 30 seconds, there's an opportunity for you to laugh. There's an opportunity to smile, even
Hmm. Yeah.
let
Just
your
one thing.
shoulders down a bit. Find
Yeah.
those 30 seconds because then it'll become a minute. It'll become a minute. It'll become a day. And then before you know it, you're having a good day. You're having a good week.
That's right.
You'll
And
have a bad day too.
there'll be lots of those.
They're, they will come back, but so will the good ones. I think that's one of the biggest things in terms of learning all about this is that, there are bad days, but there are very much good days too. And we can remind ourselves that they're accumulation of moments essentially, and that they will come and they will go and they will always find us again. And I'm glad they do.
And it takes time, right? It takes time, a lot of patience, a
A
lot of,
lot of patience, a
yeah.
lot of grace.
So I know that there's going to be some people that want to learn more about you and check you out on social media. So if they want to do that, where should they go?
You can find me on Instagram. You can go at kt.dejong. I share a little bit of everything, some cooking, fitness, my brother, the things that make me human. So I'll be there. I hope to join me.
Absolutely. You are such a bright light. And I'm going to say this from the bottom of my heart. You are wise beyond your years, lady.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And to all the angel moms out there, take care and we'll catch you next time.